Interest and care for our brothers and sisters in Africa has never been greater. Whether it is Bono hobnobbing with world leaders pleading for first world help for Africa, George Clooney marching for greater American help in stopping the Darfur genocide, or the mission or relief work of our local churches, most of us know a lot more about Africa than we used to. And it is, in some ways, an unwanted blessing. Those of us who, by virtue of our religious training or philosophy, feel compelled to respond lovingly, even sacrificially, to the pain of others, know that we are supposed to do something. I live in a small town in Connecticut. Jesus, the one who I say that I want to follow, taught clearly that I am to love my neighbor. Unfortunately, I know that he didn't mean my next-door neighbor. He meant that I am supposed to love the other people I know, the people with whom I have contact, relationship. And in the internet age, in the new global village, in our time of mass communication and easy air travel, I have ended up knowing people in Sudan. And Jesus told us, in his very last teaching before his passion, that a time is coming when we will be separated as the sheep from the goats. Then he will say to those on his left, the goats of the story, "Depart from me, you who are accursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." This is one of my neighbors, the one who taught me all about Sudan. 5 years ago I couldn't have found Sudan, the largest country in Africa, large as all of Western Europe, on a map. And now I know about the genocide in Darfur, and I can find Stephen's Macaire community and places like Malakal and Mading and Guarignon. You might think that a poor African fellow, lucky enough to have gotten to the U.S. as a refugee, now an American citizen, would just dig into the difficulties and responsibilities of a new life, taking care of a wife and child while negotiating a new language and culture. But Stephen has not forgotten his people. These video images were taken last year when Stephen returned to his home village after an absence of 18 years. He met people who remembered him as a little boy, old men who told him stories about his father, who would sing at weddings. Stephen has not forgotten his people. He phones me all the time and tells me about them. They are of the Nuer tribe, the most populous racial group in South Sudan, but underrepresented in the Dinka-dominated Provisional Government of South Sudan, which is setting up a government in Juba, following the 2005 peace accord with the Khartoum government of the North. 2 million South Sudanese have died in decades of civil war, and their modest agrarian and cattle-raising society has been completely devastated. They need just about everything you can think of, and Stephen has recruited me and others to help the town of his birth. Stephen flew to Nairobi, Kenya, then to a place called Lokochobu, then by light plane to Mading, not far from his former home. By our standards, you and I would say that Stephen is still poor, but these people greeted him with great hope that he would be the one who would bring them help. They need roads and schools. There are no clinics or hospitals. Women routinely die in childbirth. There are few wells, and those that there are dry much of the year. The people get sick with typhoid and malaria from drinking the river water in which they wash and in which the cattle wade. Stephen understands that projects in Africa must derive from the interests of the people, must be owned by them, and must be sustainable. So he tells me that he went there to ask them, face to face, what they need. In this traditional meeting place near Stephen's home village of Macaire, the people meet for worship, prayer, and to meet Stephen Chambang, a boy from their village who now lives in the United States. The round structures are called dwill and are human houses, but also are used to get the cattle out of the sun. On this trip, Stephen went by foot from village to village to reunite with his people and to get to know their leaders. Stephen tells me that many of the old men in this video have died since the time of his visit. Stephen is back in Sudan right now, in May 2006. He is gravely disappointed that he has not raised more money, has not gotten further along in the planning of development projects to help his people. We may think him foolish to travel in this dangerous part of the world with so uncertain an agenda, but he thinks that this is what he is supposed to do. Sad to say, there is intermittent fighting among black African elements going on right now. Then and now, the attention of the local security force makes Stephen a little safer. I don't know how Stephen can bear it, that these people are counting on him. This old man says that he has hope in his heart because of Stephen's visit. The locals brought the sick children to the assembly so that Stephen and we would see them. In Guaranyang, Stephen presents what to us seems a modest gift, 150 pairs of eyeglasses he has brought from Minnesota. The people are singing songs of thanksgiving. Some of them tell Stephen they have not seen in 20 years. These people are almost all Christians. By the work of an American businessman in Minnesota, Les Lamont, and others, a nonprofit organization called SudanHope has been functioning for several years. Some of you who watched this video today contributed to the Boat of Hope Fund, which purchased a 24-foot-long metal boat and a motor. For 6 to 8 months of the year, the boat navigates the Barrow River from Stephen's community of Macaire in South Sudan to Gambela, Ethiopia. The 100-mile trip by river to Gambela is in many ways their lifeline to commerce, medicine, and help of every kind. As of this report, the boat's too small gas motor has burned out, and the boat is out of use. We have leads on the gift of a new motor. Based on my conversations with Stephen, a water project makes sense to me as a limited, finite goal for a small group in northeastern Connecticut to take on. These boys are showing us that the well is dry. There are small drill rigs capable of drilling to a depth of 100 feet, which could be purchased for as little as $14,000 to $15,000. There is also very workable technology available for the construction of slow sand filters, which could be constructed at strategic locations on the riverbank. In such filters, a living layer in the sand eats the pathogens in the water which are harmful to humans. Chinese oil companies are drilling for oil only a short distance from Stephen's home village. Huge payments have been made to the government for the leases, and substantial payments have been apportioned to the new government in Juba, but not a penny has come back to Stephen's people. We have tried to make contact with USAID to no avail. Stephen in these very days is in Khartoum begging for help for his people, and he is expecting to meet with the governor of the state of Malakal, his home state. But everyone tells us the same thing. Don't count on the government to do anything. Not ours, not Khartoum, not the new government of the South. On many levels, it is very discouraging. The corruption, the lack of righteous leadership in the Sudan, the overwhelming nature of the need. My brave friend is back there again now, armed mostly with his love for his people and his great courage. I want to help him help them if I can, maybe with fresh drinking water. Will you help me help Stephen Chambang and the newer people?